Whether a movie, TV show, or video game, a surprise reveal or plot twist can really help pull a story together. It can leave audiences with a final shocking gut punch to meditate on, and given the interactive nature of video games, they're more easily able to provide tantalizing yet subtle hints towards impending reveals, hiding them in plain sight such that only the most attentive of players will ever actually notice them. I'm Jess for WhatCulture. Here are 10 video game reveals you can spot early if you really look. Spoilers ahead if you want to find them all for yourselves. Number 10. Venom Snake's true identity. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Metal Gear Solid 5's hugely controversial final twist reveals that players actually spent the whole game playing not as Big Boss, but a medic. A medic who was transformed into a Big Boss doppelganger through plastic surgery and hypnosis. Right. But players who look extremely closely in glass reflections, particularly in the window of the chopper which transports Snake to his next sortie, will actually be able to see the faint visage of the medic's real face they custom created at the start of the game. The reflection is dim enough that it's easy to play through the entire game and never once notice it. But if you squint a little, you can spoil the game's biggest rug pull 20 or 30 hours before it actually drops for real. Number 9. Cal's double-bladed lightsaber. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Beyond Darth Vader's last-minute cameo, one of the most crowd-pleasing moments in Fallen Order was seeing Cal get his double-bladed lightsaber. Players have a few opportunities to create the double-bladed lightsaber throughout the campaign, but any keen-eyed Star Wars fan probably should have appreciated that it was going to happen early on from taking a quick look at Cal's lightsaber. The close-up glimpses of Cal's lightsaber show that it was once a double-bladed lightsaber, but has since been damaged. It's later revealed that the lightsaber originally belonged to Cal's dead Jedi Master, Jaro Tapal, with the bottom blade being shot to pieces during his final battle. Given the tradition for Jedi to fashion and modify their own sabers, there was just no way Cal wasn't going to give his own bequeathed weapon a nifty upgrade by the game's end, as was apparent to any Star Wars fan really paying attention. Number 8. Alice is an android. Detroit Become Human. One of the major plot threads of Detroit Become Human sees android Kara become the ward of a young human girl called Alice. Later in the game, however, it's revealed that Alice is in fact an android herself, given to abusive father Todd as a replacement for his real daughter who was taken away by her mother. There is one pretty obvious, if easily missed, hint to this twist right at the start of the game, when Kara heads upstairs to clean Alice's room. If you take a look at Alice's drawings around the room, you'll notice that she draws herself as having blonde hair, despite the fact that the Alice we know is a brunette. This is because these drawings were made by the real Alice, who evidently looked quite a bit different to her android equivalent. Boom. Number 7. Shepard's heel turn. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Easily the most game-changing twist in the Call of Duty series occurs in Modern Warfare 2, when Lieutenant General Shepard pulls a heel turn for the ages by murdering Ghost and Roach in cold blood. Yet there's a subtle but totally damning hint towards Shepard's treachery right at the start of the game. Throughout Modern Warfare 2, there are 45 laptops containing enemy intel for players to discover, the first of which is actually in the game's tutorial level. Given that the tutorial takes place at the friendly base Firebase Phoenix, there's no real reason for enemy intel to be just left lying around. Clearly, Shepard got careless with his duplicity and showed his true colors as a turncoat in the process. Number 6. Eva is a Chinese spy. Metal Gear Solid 3: Snake Eater. Metal Gear Solid 3's epic finale is jam-packed with stunning twists and turns. Most memorably, of course, that the boss wasn't a Soviet defector after all, and in fact secretly working for the US government the entire time. A secondary twist reveals that Snake's colleague Eva was actually a spy working for the Chinese People's Liberation Army, charged with stealing the Philosopher's Legacy for China. There are several clues throughout the game pointing to Eva's true nature, though not one as elegantly simple as the fact that her weapon of choice is a Type 17 Morse pistol, one of the most recognizably Chinese weapons in the world, and one which Eva herself even acknowledges is Chinese. Further still, Eva fires the gun in the sideways bandit style, which was popularized in China in the 1920s. Even the motorcycle she uses for most of the game, the IMZ Ural M72, is from a real-life line of vehicles which was sold from the Soviets to the Chinese in the 1950s, several years before Operation Snake Eater takes place. Granted, you need some prior knowledge of weapons, combat, or vehicles to make sense of all this, but in typical Kojima fashion, he's giving you all the information you need to figure things out ahead of time. Number 5. Clayface is the fake Joker. Batman Arkham City. Batman Arkham City pulls off a rather ingenious sleight of hand by revealing that the healthy Joker encountered throughout the game is actually Clayface, who was masqueraded as the clown prince of crime at the behest of the real terminally ill Joker. Beyond the numerous hints that the game drops throughout that this is in fact not the real Joker, diligent players who utilize their extensive suite of gadgets can actually figure this out way beforehand. If you use detective mode on the Joker during the Funhouse sequence, you'll see that he doesn't actually have a skeleton at all, confirming that he isn't who he appears to be. The Clayface reveal would be especially obvious to anyone who used the detective mode on Clayface in the previous game, Arkham Asylum, when he assumed the likeness of Commissioner Gordon with a similar lack of skeleton. Number 4. Mr. Jefferson is the antagonist. Life is Strange. Life is Strange eventually drops the bombshell reveal that the episodic adventure game's murderous antagonist has been Mr. Jefferson, Max's hip photography teacher, all along. Though it's actually super early in the game that Jefferson himself drops a very obvious hint to his own malevolent intentions during a class that Max attends. One of the first things we hear Jefferson say while taking his class is, "Seriously though, I can frame any one of you in a dark corner and capture you in a moment of desperation." Given that Jefferson's entire creepy MO is to drug and photograph young girls for kicks, that's a pretty blatant nod towards his true nature. If that quote doesn't sound familiar and you have played the game, it's probably because it's very easily missed, as you can interrupt Jefferson's dialogue by interacting with anything in the environment. If you're patient enough to listen to Jefferson's entire monologue and play the game with subtitles on though, it's much easier to figure out early on that something's not quite right with this guy. Number 3. Nicole is dead. Dead Space. Dead Space ends with the revelation that protagonist Isaac Clarke's girlfriend Nicole has been a marker-induced hallucination for the game's entirety, having previously committed suicide to avoid becoming a necromorph. This of course leads to the game's unforgettable jump scare of an ending where the hallucination of Nicole attacks him right before we cut to black. But developers EA Redwood Shores, later rebranded as Visceral Games, included a hilariously obvious hint to this truth, albeit one which will probably only be apparent to anyone who looked up a strategy guide while playing the game. Basically, the first letter from each of the game's chapter titles spells out "Nicole is dead," ensuring that anyone who took a prolonged glance at the chapter lists in order might have had that brutal final rug pull spoiled for them. Number 2. Atreus is Loki, God of War. 2018's God of War was a surprise for a bunch of reasons, not the least of which was the reveal that Kratos' son Atreus was actually the trickster god Loki. There are numerous slight hints towards Atreus' true identity throughout the game, but perhaps not one more blatant than in Atreus' introductory scene in the game's opening moments. The first time we see Atreus appear on screen, he walks past Kratos holding a sprig of mistletoe, and mistletoe is commonly associated with Loki in Norse mythology, as he used a mistletoe spear to kill Balder, who also appears to be the game's primary antagonist. Also, the fact that Atreus impales Balder's hand with a mistletoe arrow late in the game, rendering him vulnerable in the process, offers up a final hint as to the boy's true identity before it's confirmed. If you're not big on Norse mythology, you might have missed that one, but if you're in the know and keep your eyes peeled, this is a reveal you can find out for yourself before the game tells you. Number 1. Walker is suffering from PTSD. Spec Ops: The Line. Spec Ops: The Line is one of the most famously devious video games ever made, a third-person shooter with an unexpectedly anti-war sentiment. Players are progressively prompted to doubt protagonist Captain Walker's sanity, leading to the reveal that Walker's communications with the presumed antagonist Colonel Conrad have all been hallucinations, in the mind of a PTSD-afflicted Walker. Though players don't actually know what Conrad looks like until the end of the game, there are plenty of hints suggesting there may be something wrong with our hero. One of the more subtle allusions is the presence of billboards throughout the game which contain Conrad's face. And while we as players don't know we're looking at Conrad at this point, the fact that his face appears on a number of seemingly unrelated billboards is extremely fishy. If nothing else, they're the earliest hints that Walker isn't of sound mind, as of course turns out to be so shockingly true at game's end. Let me know down in that comment box if there are any other great game reveals that you've noticed early. I've been Jess for What Culture. Do come say hi to me on Twitter where I'm at Jess McDonald, and be sure to stay tuned to us here for plenty more content.